focus on organic. Try to work, try to drink, try to taste, try to see people who farm organically. It's important because really wine is a living beverage. Breathing is living every day. It's changing every day. And if it's nuked with chemicals and if it's completely dumbed down with all the additives, then it's not alive. And that's not wine.
Thank you for listening to Serves You Right. My name is Andrew, and today I have a treat for everyone out there. We are talking to the world-famous sommelier, Rajat Parr. I first came into contact with Raj with his book, Secrets of the Sommelier. He has since written another. A lot of people know him from his appearance in the movie Saw. He is a world-class wine taster and recently has been focusing on Phelan farms, growing grapes and making wine. So super exciting talk. I was thrilled to get a hold of Rajat. And without any further ado, here is Serves You Right, and I hope you enjoy it. Well, cool. Hey, Rajat Parr, thanks for coming on Serves You Right.
So, yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I wanted to start, I was wondering, and I tried to frame this in a couple of different ways, but I thought I'd frame it. How did probably one of the most famous and well-known somms in the world end up farming? You know, that's quite a transition, or at least to my mind. Maybe not, but
yeah. Working in restaurants, I worked the floor for 18 years, and the last maybe year 12, 13, I was thinking to myself, I'm going to turn 40 soon, and how much longer am I going to work the floor? And also the times were changing because it was service. I think for me, the constant, stopping service, take a photo or take a bottle. It became a little bit, my patience after 18 days, I'm I gotta find something else. I can't work the floor all the time because I love working the floor. And then I kind of started making a little bit of wine. And that's what after I made wine, I did both for several years between 2004 and till maybe 2014 or even 16. I did both. I was working the floor a few days a week and in the cellar. And not until the pandemic, I really felt the urge to farm. I was it's the best time to learn something I haven't done before because, making wine and farming are two different things. And I think sometimes there's mistaken that, I'm a winemaker, so you make the wine. But really, a winemaker should be a wine grower. The word doesn't exist. The word vigneron in French, there's no word for winemaker in French, for example.
Now, I think I remember you saying that in The Secrets of the Sommelier, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was I got to jump in and see what it's all about. And so I spent, we had a lot of time in 2020 to kind of read. And I moved to Cambria and started farming this piece of land and started 11 acres. And yeah, did it alone for a couple of years and then got some help and kind of still trying to figure it all out. So yeah, but it was just an urge inside to do something which is not which I hadn't done before.
Sure. Yeah. Service is one of those things I feel like if you aren't in love with it, can quickly wear you down. Because, you are on your feet. You are on your feet constantly. I can only imagine if people not only wanted to talk to you about wine, but wanted to take pictures of you because you're well known. I could see that being a real grind.
I'm not thinking about that. It also, every time, the Instagram or the phone times, you serve a wine. Oh, let me take a photo of the bottle. I'll put it on the table in a minute. But it was I'm sure you see it anytime.
I was interrupting the flow. Okay, got it.
Yeah, it was just everything was it was even now a lot of take a photo of the food or the bottle or the not necessarily what me, but it's more what the flow.
Your guests were inadvertently recreating the difficulty of the quartermaster Psalms test, trying to throw you off your game, but just because they wanted to take pictures.
Yeah, and that's fine. But just when it's in every bottle you serve, then it gets all right. That's not how it was back in the day. But
Any any place that you could have ended up being, as you put it in French, a vigneron in California, you chose one off the beaten path. Why not a Napa or Sonoma or, you know, was there a reason that you ended where you were?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, it was a somewhat of a calculated guess because I would never I've never done things on like something which has already been done. I like to do things and find new places, new things, new varietals, so I can then really champion that and be a part of that. Cambria was, it still is, a very unknown wine growing region. It's a part of the slow coast, but it's the northern end. The appellation was only formed like 5 years ago, so it's really new. And Cambria only has 3 vineyards. When I moved there first, there was zero organic farming happening there, at least in the vineyard. So it was something, something new, a new challenge and something, and I thought Cambria would work because I did some soil testing and just I knew the challenges I was going to get into, but it had clay soils, so high water retention, close to the ocean, so extremely cool climate, and working in nature. So the vineyards are all around forests, ungrafted vines. So it had a lot of kind of uniqueness. So you could kind of dry farm, you could, and you have quartz and you have some kind of calcareous soils. So it had a lot of kind of interesting things. And of course, I could tell all the positives, but of course, then you start farming and you realize why there aren't many other people doing it with you.
There's a reason this
So
place is abandoned. Yeah.
yeah, but it's yeah, no, it's a unique spot. It's very different than I've made wine in a few different places in the U.S. and it's uniquely different. And what I've learned from this experience so far is that you just have to kind of continue on the path and work with nature, and that's it. So you have to just be fully dedicated to nature and yeah, Cambria is, there's no other place in the world I'd rather be except here.
That's beautiful. On that note, continuing on the path, I think I may have put the cart in front of the horse. So, I definitely I know of you because back in my studying for the Somm certification days, I know Secrets of the Sommelier was a big book for me. I got your Sommelier's Atlas of Taste recently, and I was like, yes, I love both. But I think the listener at home, I might have people who perhaps are a little bit younger than me, just entering the restaurant world, maybe don't know you. Do you mind going back and kind of walking us through a little bit, just 30,000 foot view of your career, kind of what you've done, where you came from, and why I was so nervous to talk to you?
Yeah, okay. So I guess so. I was born in India in Calcutta, and I love food. I went to hotel management school in India. I really wanted to be a chef when I was young, and I got a chance to spend a little time in England, and then I finally moved to Hyde Park, New York, to the Culinary Institute of America, and this was in '94. And the goal was to kind of, you know, go to school 2 years and then go back home and work with my family because they had restaurants there. So came to New York, spent 2 years. It was a great program and fell in love with wine and decided not to pursue cooking, decided to, learn about wine. I moved to San Francisco and connected with someone called Larry Stone, who took me under his wing, trained me, and worked with him for 3 years. And I kind of stayed in the country then because I was like, no point going back now because I'm not cooking. I'm going to be in wine. But that was like the beginning, and that was so. I started my career. I first started as a food runner, became a bar back server, and then eventually became Larry's assistant. So went through the whole gamut of the restaurant because I had never worked in restaurants before and learned that and then just started running wine programs. I've only had 3 jobs my entire life. And yeah, so I'm all in San Francisco. And then since then, I've been working for myself. But, the most important part of the whole journey was that I learned from somebody. I learned from a great person, a mentor, a human that kind of Larry, who kind of molded me in the greatest way possible. And my job is to pay that forward. So it's important to spend time and teach in any way I can because I still get people who want to come and learn about wines and stuff. And I'm like, I work at a farm now, so but still, if there's a chance, people still come and they like, can you do a blind tasting for us? I'm like, absolutely. I mean, it's different. I don't work in a restaurant floor, so I can't really be a part of that. But when I travel, if sometimes I do, have a chance to kind of do an event and work the floor and talk about other wines, because for me it's easier talking about other wines than my own wines. But it's the most important part is like the mentorship that kind of is what's I think. I mean, and mentorship is kind of failing in every part of society now, because it's hard, because people who, like a lot of my peers who don't work the floor anymore, do other things, or even in other industries, it's hard to find mentors because everyone's busy and traveling. And so any chance I have to kind of spend time with young people to teach, it's my privilege, because I learned from someone I want to learn on my own. And back then there was no Google. It wasn't like back in the 90s. Yeah, what's the soil type of Hermitage? It wasn't like something you can just, you have to go to a library and find a book or ask someone. Today it's much easier. Today you can get all these things through the internet and other things. Though warning that there's a lot of information out there is still kind of a little bit, you know, it's a lot of accurate information, is a lot of it is not.
Yeah. And I feel like with mentorship, you get the added bonus not only of the knowledge, because I mean, in a time before knowledge was abundant, that was important, but you get the added benefit of filtration, because there's
Mm.
too much knowledge. There's too many things that you could look at, and there's too many things that you could learn, especially like a subject as deep and just like all encompassing as beverage, wine, but looking through all the different things and zeroing in, like you may not need to know all these soil types, but learn Hermitage. Like, look here, this is an important thing. And you don't get that if you're just kind of going blind by yourself. But if you have the guiding hand of a mentor, you do get a little bit of a leg up on, they've made the mistakes that you don't have to anymore. Sorry to interrupt. We will get back to Rajat and me in just a second, but I wanted to take a second to say, if you have not had a chance to follow the show, please do. It would mean the world to me. All right, back at it.
Yeah. Experience is the most important part, and listening. 'Cause I think in a lot of people might not listen, because it's not like hearing. I'm listening to you. I'm like, okay. I'm like, because it's so important to listen to the failures the previous generation has had, because success is easy to kind of, oh, I did this, but like the failures are the most important part of anyone's success, because if you haven't failed, you'll never succeed. Because at one point, because sometimes you kind of fail at something and you like stop and say, okay, you know what, I'm out. And that's when you kind of learn from the failure and say, okay, how could I have gotten past this step? How could I, I failed at this. How could I get better? Not better, but how could I reverse this and not make the same mistake? And that happens only with experience, in everything, in anything really. It's not only what in restaurants, but in life.
Well, I think for our conversation now and your past, and what I'm concerned with now is, I'm thinking blind tasting. The blind tastings where you actually get the wines right may feel good, but I think they're a lot less instructive than the times that you do it and you're confident and you get it wrong. And especially
Yeah.
if you have the chance to taste that thing right afterwards and you're like,
Yeah.
talked myself into
Yeah.
that one there,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, I've had many experiences with people who are going for their MS or the advanced, and just before the day before I do a tasting for them, and they're like, do terrible. And then
Hmm.
the next day they go nail it and pass the test. It's happened so many times, because it's like it's just that, you know, it's like great athletes who are, taking a shot in tennis or NBA, whatever. You're taking a shot and you miss it. You can't think about that shot. You got to go move forward, take the next shot. Because if you're gonna just keep thinking about what you did, but you got to do it again. And that's why repetition. That's why blind tasting, you can only be good at it if you do it a lot. You can't just do it like, oh, I'll do it once in a while. It has to be completely fanatical. You have to be completely into it, so deep, so intense because it has become muscle memory. Like when I used to do, not many times, but I had a couple of really amazing assistants. When I was going to like solidify their role, as you know, I would take them out for dinner, and then we would, drink a bunch of wine, and then have the whole night, and then after the end of the night, then I would do a blind tasting
Hmm.
because you are blind tasting has to become muscle memory. It can't be, oh yeah, first thing in the morning, I have nothing to eat, I'm just fresh. No, that's good. That's professional style. But
That's how you
if you want
train.
to really,
Yeah.
yeah, that's how you train. But like if you really be at the highest level, it has to become muscle memory. It just has to, you have to feel it. You smell a while, it smells like limestone, it smells like granite on the nose. But that's just muscle memory. It's not something I can't tell you why it smells like limestone or why it smells like granite. It just is engraved in your system. And that's when you do it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And these days it's become really hard. These days, honestly, it's hard because there's so many places where wines are made now, and people know the techniques, and people know how to make it, how to grow it. So it's hard. It's not as easy as it used to be back in the day, for sure.
Sure. Yeah. And I think, maybe not blind tasting for identification, but just blind tasting in general. Like I'm trying to pull that apart because I do think that there is still like if you have someone who's picked a representative, something that shows typicity, I think that there's still a lot of like you can get there blind tasting as long as the person who sets it up knows like what it'd be reasonable for a person to guess. But if you're putting some random like indigenous grapes that I can't even pronounce that I've never seen before,
Right. Oh yeah.
description is also very useful. It's just it's a different it's a different game almost. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's definitely gotten more complicated than it used to be, for sure. Yeah.
Yep. It's probably good that you've gotten out of the game a little bit then. So if I'm if I'm listening to this and I'm just a new server, a new bartender, and I'm thinking I want to get into wine. I'm lost here. I just turned 21, 22. Where would you recommend someone start?
So, I mean, I know a lot of young people are in the game right now and learning. I think the more theory knowledge you can get as of the basics of what, like, I would start with classic regions, Bordeaux, Burgundy, Rhone, Champagne, Alsace, like that, like, to the classic regions. Then you go for France, you go to maybe Germany, go to Moselle, and try to stay on the classic infrastructure and just read as much about them and try to get the feel for them. And then the only thing is to taste. Then you gotta taste, and that's the hardest part because wines become expensive. It's then you have to find a serious enough, I would say, because you don't have to be too serious, or a group of people who would want to kind of want to do it with you, because it costs money and takes time. So you create some kind of a, we'll buy wines at certain price point or whatever, as much money, because as much money as you have, and then you can get together once a week, once a month, whatever the case may be, and taste wines and pick a topic and have wines from that region. You don't have to have it blind in the beginning, because that's like next stage. But even if you open a bottle of, a classic German Riesling, or, Bourgogne Blanc, or whatever the case may be, and then you kind of like learn about the place, the taste, and learn classic. Because once you learn classic, then you can move on. You don't want to go into, a carbonic Zweigelt from Austria, which is delicious, fun, but it's, but then you're not going to learn about, because they probably won't ask you about Zweigelt in the test, and you should learn about, maybe Pinot Noir or Cabernet or Merlot or Syrah before you learn about the other varieties. The most important part is having that group, and then staying
Yeah.
true. And no one, and blind tasting comes much later. First is the reading and tasting, and then eventually, save money and take a trip, because
Mm.
The fastest way to learn is to be in the place. Yeah, that's the fastest way to learn. There's no other way to learn. You can learn a lot from the book. You can learn a lot from tasting, and repeat and repeat and repeat. But when you go there, you know, you look at the vines, makes sense. And also, I know, you know, it's not easy traveling everywhere these days, but you know, go see a vineyard, go see how pruning is done. You know, there's so many videos online how they do it. You know, and they pick the right people to do it, and learn about pruning, learn about shoot thinning, learn about how vines are grown, decisions of picking. Go to a vineyard. Just ask someone. Ask someone who you trust of how what the process is, and that all those things will all come together, and eventually it's you know it's there's so many different things you can do in wine growing and wine making, but they're quite simple. So if you know the honest simple truth, then you understand it much easier. There's a lot of complexity, there's a lot of funny business happening in the wines, a lot of things people add, and a lot of things you do in the you know all that stuff. That's all noise. Focus on the vineyard, focus on the soil, and try to focus on organic. Try to work, try to drink, try to taste, try to see people who farm organically. It's important because really wine is a living beverage. Breathing is living every day. It's changing every day. And if it's nuked with chemicals and if it's completely dumbed down with all the additives, then it's not alive. And that's not wine. That's just a alcoholic beverage. You might as well have a, I don't know, what do you get in this White
Yeah,
Claw or whatever?
White Claw or yeah, one
Yeah,
of those
exactly.
guys. Yeah, Miller High Life maybe. It is the
Yeah, it's
champagne of
delicious.
beer. Yeah.
That's right. It is delicious.
um, yeah, that's a good point. And I really like that. I feel like people that get really deep into things like wine, like spirits, you can always tell when someone's gotten to a really far level because they go from, have you ever seen the midwit meme? It's kind of funny where
No.
so it's this idea on the left-hand side, it's a really simple person who figures something out. In the middle, it's someone who's trying to be smart, and it's always they're overcomplicating everything. And then on the far right, it's someone who's a super genius sage, and they almost always have the same realization as the person on the left side that's simple. And it's just like, start and you learn a little bit about the regions and the grapes, and then you get into it and you start like learning all this maze of appellations of Italy, and you start drawing these maps and you get all this chaos as you're going deeper and deeper into certification. And at the end, I feel like we end up like you, where it's just like, no, it's all about the vineyard. Go to the vineyard, learn the basics. It's like you always end up in the same place after you've gone on this huge journey through all this minutia.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, to actually second your group idea, the only time I was ever a part of a tasting group, it was a group of us that went for our certified. Then later I went to the advanced and I ended up not passing the tasting last time I took it. So I'm still on that journey. But the certified, the pass rate isn't horrible, but it's not the best. But our whole group passed together in one go, and it was fun. We spent like money on together. We got champagne bottles to practice service, and then we just had parties afterwards because we had champagne bottles.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and you like have a group. You go on, you get to celebrate together, and we all pass, and it's like this is great. And I don't
Yeah,
think I would
yeah,
have kept studying when I was that young had I not had the pressure of other people depending on me too. So
yeah.
yeah, it helps.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit about your journey with it's Phelan Farm, right?
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
some unique
So
grapes, some unique philosophies. I'm really excited. I can tell from what you're saying that you're big into organic, which awesome.
yeah, I mean it's it all comes down to where we are living on this planet. It's one planet. Everything should be living, and humans are the only race that poison our own food and then just to kind of kill the weeds and then eat it.
Systematically
So
poison their own food. Yeah.
yeah, so and sometimes it's not told because there's so many layers of things because we don't always look at the farm where we buy the food from because not everyone's surrounded by nature and surrounded with the farms where things are growing. So for me, when I was during the pandemic, I was like, um, looking at what how I'm going to farm the vineyard and what I'm going to do. It's like I looked at different, and I was never looking at conventional ideas. It was always about farming organically, and looking at reading about Steiner and biodynamic. And now we focus more on regenerative farming, kind of look at what's around us and minimal soil disturbance, including animals in the cycle, and using cover crops, and kind of really kind of trying to make the soil better, because the vineyards I took over, they were not organically farmed prior to me. And so my job is to kind of turn back that to healthy soils. And that's something which is a global thing, healthy soils, because there's soil and then there's dirt, right? Dirt is not living. The soil has living microbes in it. It's about the nutrients, and anything that grows needs nutrients. And if it's planted on healthy soils, it's going to have a much better chance of growing and producing a nutritious product.
So
I'm sure you,
in that process, how long did it take for that to reverse? Did you see it just slowly progress year by year, or was it a pretty quick like turnaround?
no, it's still happening. I mean, this
Okay.
is starting in 2017, 2018. It's still in the process. We made progress, but it's just a slow process. People say it could take 3 to 10 years. We are in our 10th year now, and or ninth year now, and it's we still feel that there's more work to be done, and it only gets better because from the time you start farming, converting from conventional to organic, you have to build your fungal matter because your soils are bacteria driven. You're trying to build that fungal matter back in the soil, so then you have a natural nutrient cycling, because nature is very forgiving, right? It's like in the forest, things grow, and then a storm comes, takes the tree down, a big animal comes, takes the plants down, but it grows again. When a tree falls in the forest, no one is clapping about it. It's just fallen, right? It's just there. So how do we kind of take the same idea of we are growing grapes? It's for a reason, to make wine. But if you leave it to its own devices, it's going to probably never grow because it doesn't have enough sunlight or enough water,
Or it'll just grow a giant bush and very few grapes because it's just vegetation everywhere or something. Yeah.
exactly. So you have to kind of, there's human intervention needed to the trellising, and make it, because what does the plant look for? It looks for sunlight and nutrition of the soil. We can't change sunlight because that's nature. Sun comes when it comes, rain comes when it comes. But what you can do is you can work towards changing the soil structure. So, cover cropping, using compost, using other soil amendments to kind of make the soil healthy, and then the plants grow. And this whole cycle is something which has been the most rewarding to see, because the it's been 9 years now since the slow conversion, and I think it's all coming back. I think if I taste the wine from the first year to now, it's leaps and bounds different, because the wine again is full of life. It's full of microbes. The soil is much lighter, much softer, much more airy, and things are growing everywhere. You know, we need to we need to add nature to nature. We need to have things growing with, because if you only have one plant growing and everything else is completely clear, then that one plant is only going to be a singular flavor. But like at Fairlawn Farm, we have all these different sycamores and willows and bay laurel, and when you taste the wines include the flavors of all those other elements in the forest that's part of the wine.
Yeah.
And that was the most important part for me, to kind of focus on what nature has. How can you mimic nature in your wine?
I'm thinking mental image I have in my mind is tequila, oddly enough. Just picturing, if you've ever seen in Jalisco, just those rows and rows of the one agave, and that's it, almost in a desert like environment. And like that is kind of the model for a lot of conventionally farmed vineyards versus kind of the more artisanal like mezcal, which may be more akin to what you're doing, where some are wild harvested and there's a little bit more variety. And yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect analogy
Yeah,
because there is some
yeah, yeah,
industrially
yeah,
produced mezcal too, but
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, mezcal is truly amazing, because mezcal is like a lot of it is wild, but they also how it's grown and how it's made. I mean, it's a whole different story. And because some mezcal, the pinas and the agave, they'll be like 20 years old plus 25 years old, and that's like, and it's like it's wild in a mountaintop, and you have to go there with a mule and go cut it and carry it back, and the whole process is wild and crazy, very
And
different
it's
than
shocking that it's like $20 a bottle. Yeah. I, I heard a master som once refer to mezcal as it was the sustainability of, it was the same sustainability of making a distillate from the coral reef, just the amount of time and work. It's like, I always thought that was funny. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about this, just with everything you're talking about with the farm, regenerating the soil. Can you talk to us a little bit about terroir? Because
yeah.
yeah, it's a big one. I know it's like one of the biggest
Yeah.
topics in wine. You have 5 minutes. No.
Yeah, no, it's of course, first of all, it takes time, right? It's like, you know, I know somebody says, "Oh yeah, we have great terroir in the second vintage." You're like, okay, so you know what soil you have. So basically, in the purest form, terroir is basically the different layers of course, the soil, the structure you have, the what do you have, limestone, that your elevation, slope, whatever the case may be. It's basically your entire place plus the weather pattern. So for me, it's three things. It's the place includes the climate, the soil structure, all that. The other part is the plant material. Is no one talks about. It's like if somebody has a really shitty rootstock and some clonal material that will not never exemplify, will never show the terroir in the best way. And then the human element. The human element is, you know, unfortunately, it's the humans are part of the planting, growing, and making. So terroir on its own is just the place, which is the soil, which is the weather, which is how it's planted. But then the two other levels above that, which also influence terroir, is the human element and the plant material, which is never mentioned by anybody, because the plant material, if you think about it, if you have the shittiest clonal material and the shittiest rootstock in Romani Conti. Romani Conti had the worst plant material rootstock in there. You think Romani Conti would be as great as Romani Conti is? Probably not. It's really good because it
Yeah.
already has a great,
It
but the
checks all the
potential is not.
boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the same thing in farming. If you're farming a great place which has perfect drainage, great soil, because the reason clay and limestone is important in many parts is because clay and limestone both hold water. Vines need water, right? If Romani Conti has to irrigate one day, it will not be the same Romani Conti as that was not irrigated.
Hmm.
That's just the truth of it, right? It's just the way life is. If you have to irrigate to keep your vines alive, then the wine will be different. And I'm not telling you better or worse, but it'll be different. But terroir on its pure form is soil, human, and plant material.
Yeah. I'm glad. The reason I did want to ask you about that was because of the human element. And I wanted to highlight that because, you are actively involving yourself in the terroir of Phelan Farm by moving it from conventional to organic and a little more in tune with nature, a little more sustainable. I was thinking in the extreme, the plant material conversation. In my head, I was thinking you take Burgundy and you rip out the Pinot Noir and plant Zinfandel. Definitely, it's going to be a different terroir for sure. I don't know if anyone would ever do that.
Yeah, I know it's. I think it's interesting to kind of, if you look at just, yeah, because it all has to match, right? Because there's a reason why the appellation system has, you can grow these grapes in this place, so everyone kind of conforms the same idea, and the terroir is what's kind of commonly believed that this is what's going to be great. And people of course will introduce new grapes and new varieties and other things, but really, I mean, the genetic material in the ground has to match the soil. I think now there's a lot more conversation in Europe about the genetic material, because everyone, 'cause of course, when you have clones, they are giving you certain things, yield or color or certain idea. But when you have a plant that just works in this place, it works. And that's is working for hundreds of years. And yeah, why change it for yield? Because at a certain time in history, people did plant things just to get yield because they're making a certain style of wine. But now, as wine has become so popular and certain regions are extraordinary, have their have their niche and have a certain price point and stuff. So why would you not convert back to the good plant material?
Yeah. I mean, that is a funny point. Like I had never thought about it that way until you were saying this. For a little while in Europe, we had this phenomenon where the most coveted bottles are shooting up in price, becoming more and more precious. And it also coincided with the vine pool scheme because we have an ocean of cheap, high production wine no one wants. It, like both have been going on simultaneously for a while. Like it is funny. You get to see both sides of that there.
Yeah.
I was hoping we could talk a little bit about the varieties, just kind of talking about the vines and the vine stock that you grow at Phelan Farm, because you don't grow only the traditional varieties that people kind of pair in their mind with California. You have other things, the Sauvignon, the Pulsard, like interesting varieties that you may not first think of when you are thinking of America.
Yeah. So, I've made Pinot and Chardonnay for many, many years, and that, you know, as we know, grows in certain places and has a certain, and they both are kind of earlier ripening varieties. And Cambria, we get our really a warmth. Our summer happens only in October, end of September, October. So you start picking around that time. So I decided to plant late ripening varieties. These are ripened more in October, November. And they were all the Jura and Sava varieties, like Savagnin, which we harvested last year on Halloween. Then we have Trousseau, which usually people harvest on an earlier side, but we always harvest in the end of October. Gamay, we harvest end of October. Mondouse, early November. Granger, Altesse, Jacquer, all of that is early November usually. So very late ripening. Pulsard, which we're still trying to grow it. It's not the easiest grape to figure out. And yeah, so all kind of more late ripening varieties. Sauvignon being one of the most important ones because that truly is, we get to 13 degrees of alcohol like late, just barely get there. So it's very important to not only think about the growing conditions, but also like how late the season, how long and late the season is. Because in Cambria, like last year, the warmest day of the year was 88 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
that,
not
that
a
was the
lot.
warmest,
Yeah.
which is not a lot. Which is not a lot. And it just was a cold year last year. And we got to 13% in Sauvignon, Pinot 12, 12 and a half. It's just Mondo's usually 10 and a half, 11 in November. Yeah, it's and they're ripe. They're like ripe grapes, but they just sugar accumulation is very slow. Cause so we kind of focus more on late ripening varieties, and some of them kind of haven't been as successful as others, but most of them are. Yeah, so far so good.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's nice to hear of wines from California that aren't 16% or anything crazy. You
Yeah,
yeah, get a lot of sun out there for sure.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Do you think that there's a future for those grapes in the rest of California, or is it just that
yeah.
your
No, I
spot
think
worked well? Or
I think Sauvignon could be interesting. And there are some vineyards planted in Santa Barbara County, some vineyards planted up north, Mendocino and stuff. Yeah, I think slowly. I think, I mean, Sauvignon was mostly grown to make vin jaune, and only 25 years ago they started making dry wines from it. So it's not it doesn't have a history of dry wine. Some people did, but not everyone did. So Trousseau's been around in California for a long time, and Pulsard is not much Pulsard here. That's a hard grape to grow. Mondouse has been in California for a long time, also. There's so I think these grapes, it's just that you know the culture of drinking, has to also, because a lot of people are kind of attached to the idea of making wine with richness and viscosity and a certain amount of alcohol, a certain amount of oak that's pleasing. But, as we change our eating patterns and eat fresher things, and I think the palate's going to change and drink fresher things, because I think that when I started in the mid '90s, there were very few California wines. I mean, maybe the old school wines, but through the '90s, 2000s, very few California wines in the 12% alcohol range. Yeah, there were some, old school producers making that, but then with climate change and everything else, with the palate change and the wine critics and everything else, some people wanted a bigger style wine. Through the 2000s, I mean, it was tough. It was tough to find something in the 12-ish range. It was more like 14-ish range. And slowly this kept going up. I mean, also think of the culture of drinking. When America started drinking wine, the baby boomers, they're moving from drinking whiskey to wine.
Oh yeah,
So
with the body and the oak and everything. Yeah,
yeah. So it's just a natural progression. So now what we're seeing is that the younger people are maybe moving towards more fresher wine, and that's just the way it is. And but that's been the European style for a long time. And Europe's having a hard time keeping alcohols down now, because of the string of warm years. So it's in reverse. So, who knows what's going to happen.
we're pushing it up and they're pushing it down, both furiously.
Not because they want to, that's just the way nature is going in that way. It's just getting harder and harder. Yeah.
Yeah. There are two things I want to throw out there. So I have two responses to guests usually that are looking for only body or only oak. And so I may actually have stolen the body thing from you. Actually, I don't remember where I got it. So there's a chance it's from your book. If so, let me know. It's that saying that you like a bottle of wine because of the body is like saying that you like music for how loud it is. I
Right.
heard that from someone once and I was like, that is awesome. I'm going to steal that. And then the oak thing actually stole from Ivy Mix. She wrote a book about distillates, but she describes oak. Imagine it like the frame on a painting. And she's like, to say that you are into the painting for the frame is strange. It can complement it. It shouldn't overpower and it shouldn't be the main point of focus. It should just be the frame. It's like I like that sort of mental image because it even fits. It's a piece of wood around a pretty image. And yeah, I like that the expansion of grapes, you get more cool images with or without a frame. Oh, yeah. So don't know where it's going.
Yeah. No, no, no. You have to kind of put things in your head in order so you can remember it and kind of, yeah. No, it makes sense.
Yeah. It's kind of like how all Psalms almost always end up organizing information, all the wine information geographically. It's like you have to have buckets because otherwise you just get lost. There's really no way. I did want to ask you because I was curious the progression from the CIA to when you went to California, you were getting into a restaurant, working your way up. What was that transition like from CIA to food runner? Because I feel like that was, you kind of you threw that out there, but I know like, especially in my career, I know in other people I've seen, the idea of taking a step back almost will paralyze you. And you don't want to do something because you're afraid that you're kind of stepping into a lower role, maybe. Like, did you ever think that? Or?
No, I know, for me, it's always been about learning. Even when I started farming here, it was about learning, right? Because it's not like I know anything. I know what I know, but that's very little. So no, back then I was 20. I was When I moved to California, I was 24 years old. I mean, working on 24-year-old. No, I also remember back then there were very few sommeliers. It was like very very few, and all the sommeliers were either European or they were older, like they were like twice my age. There were no sommeliers in the 20s for a long time when I started. And so when I applied for, and my instructor in school said you should go work with someone who knows about wine, who wants to teach you. So that was my case. Then I heard about Larry Stone. I applied, and I went there. And for me, it was only about learning. When I moved from New York, 2 years in New York, from India to New York, 2 years, and New York to California, my whole I only had a 6-month visa, and I was like, I'm going to learn as much as I can in 6 months, and I'm going to go back home. And that's how it started. Because then I was like, wow, there's more to learn. I can't go yet. And then that's when Larry Stone kind of, sponsored me, and I got a work visa and kind of stayed. But it was the time was like for me, it was only about learning. I used to get to work, at whatever 9 or 10 a.m. and work both shifts and work 6 days a week, close on Sundays, and come back home. And that was like just for learning because I only had that much time. I never felt anything except like, how do I keep learning and maximize my 6 months because I had to go back home after that.
Yeah, the time constraint kind of gave you the impetus. Yeah, you only have this time and you're done. Yeah, I wonder if that also helped kind of frame it like, even if you do something that is hard and difficult 6 days a week, double shift, it's going to end in 6 months. So you can actually kind of step in and not worry about it, even if it did keep extending. And it seems like you're still here now, but
yeah, it was just all about learning. It's about like how much can you learn and who's going to teach you because it's different than if you're stuck in a room and you're just reading a book and you have to give a test after that. But other than that, you're reading a book and studying something that you have to talk to people about and enhance the experience, the dining experience. So the perspective was quite different. 'Cause I was like, oh yeah, I have to just learn because also when you're young, you don't know how much other people know because you're like, oh yeah, I'm young, I know this, but you have no idea. Someone sitting across the table is like someone who's like a wine critic or someone the wine, because also wine knowledge in the 90s was quite low. There were not that many experts, and it was much different.
yeah, a bunch of whiskey drinkers. Gotta love them. Gotta love them.
Yeah, no, it was good because the baby boomers they were the ones who had the money to spend,
Yeah.
and it was important to
No, and you do need someone, even if it is a group of people that like super ripe, super bold, super big wines, you do need a segment spending money because if there is not any assuredness that this is something that's economically viable, people don't go in. And I mean, for better or worse, wine growing, producing wine is economically pretty intensive. It just is. It takes a
Yes.
couple of years.
Oh yeah.
If you could go back and give yourself some advice, would you do things the same way? Would you have changed anything?
Not really. I would have probably maybe slowed down a little bit towards the middle. I went a little kind of just maybe too focused, maybe too much work focused.
Yeah,
I would have maybe been a little bit more calm and slower.
that
Yeah, I
makes
would have not
sense.
made work priority every single day. Yeah.
Well, I feel like you are probably getting a rebalance. I'm guessing that where you are farming, growing the grapes, making the wine is a lot less hustle and bustle than what you're used to.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, for my listeners who are at home who might want to find out more about you or find your wines, where could someone go online to learn more about you? Yeah.
Yeah. Online there's a bunch of stuff around online. You can just type my name out. Instagram is my name at Rajat Parr. And then the wines that we make, lots of little cuvées, it'll all be available under parrcollective.com. So PARR collective.com. Yeah, and then we do a bunch of events in Cambria. It's coming up, and yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you're at home listening and you didn't get to write that down, I will have all of that in the show notes. You can also pick up Rajat Parr's books, The Secrets of the Sommeliers Atlas of Taste. He's in the Saw movie. He's done it all. So, Rajat, it was a real pleasure getting to talk to you today.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you again for taking a moment to listen to Serves You Right. It really means the world to me. Episodes of this show come out every Tuesday and Thursday. And if you have not had a chance, please take a moment and check out our website, servesyouRightPod.com. We have all the episodes, past and present, a list of our coolest episodes, a form to get in touch with me, and what else could you want? All right. I will see you again soon. Cheers.